It has been said that there's a fine line between genius and madness, and I'll leave it up to the viewer whether either of those terms apply to Farbor, but it's definitely the most controversial and most divisive map in the history of Creeper World in terms of maps that were designed officially as part of the campaign, not community maps. And I think it reveals a lot about game design and the way that players react to the games. And perhaps a little bit of unfairness in there. My personal opinion is that Farbor gets somewhat of a bad rap. Let's take a look at the mission before we really assess that controversy. So as you start off, we have this in here. We must destroy these ore processors before the prism ship launches or we lose. And you can delay this process by destroying these ships that are going out to bring in the ore and bringing them into the ore processors, but if you don't delay it at all, it will take between 13 and 14 minutes, and then it will launch. The initial way that Farbor was designed was simply that's the end of the conversation. You either stop the prism ship before it reaches 100%, or you don't. But there was feedback from players that they really didn't like that sort of hard time limit. And so rather than remove it, what they did is eventually turned this into a fake ending and added an extended time. It appears that now we've hit failure. But in actuality, the prism ship wanders over here to this enhanced totem, and you have another 20 minutes to destroy it before you have really hard failed the mission. What was not fully appreciated, though, at the time was the number of players who would simply rage quit and give up. Once they realized they weren't going to be able to stop the prism ship initially, they didn't keep going and see what happened. And they have admitted that that was a mistake. But my focus here is going to be on the initial original design of the mission, getting the prism ship knocked out before it is fully built, not this second phase that was put in to make it more lenient but really didn't fully accomplish that purpose. There are multiple paths to victory on Farbor, and you don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be fairly on the ball. I'm going to demonstrate just what I think is the most straightforward way, which is to quickly seize this island in the northwest. You can do multiple landings, but that gets, of course, complicated. And we just want to push out as quickly as we're able, because the creeper is definitely going to be coming. And we'll put down an ore mine and get a couple of weapons going. Sprayer and a couple of cannons to get us started, and of course the sprayer will be always on. And in come their ore ships already. We have no choice but to ignore them for the time being. Got just enough power to run all of this. You slide down here, and we will start working on another cannon. Also, want to spread out with some more collectors and start up on a forge, because we are definitely going to want to bring in some aether for upgrades as soon as possible. And here is our sprayer. We can jump down here, so we can try to expand when we can with more collectors. Alright. You jump down here, help us out as well. A couple more collectors in here. And we're probably about ready then to pop on a mortar. I'd also like to charge you. Hit the ground running. Alright, start throwing you down. I'll move you forward just a bit. What we really need is this mortar, though, to push this back. There we go. Throw you there. That'll work just fine. Another collector there. One here. And okay, we're gonna put up a reactor, but also, you heard the noise, we need beams. So we need to make sure we get at least one of those up pretty quickly. And gradually push forward here so we can get our nullifier in place. Sooner the better. Probably a good idea to throw up a second beam here. Also get another reactor going. And I'm going to hit one energy upgrade. The rest will be reserved for weapons upgrades. We're in plenty of time with the beams. And this is down. Okay, want to move forward right away. Secure the area. And get a reactor there. To really just help ourselves boost. Okay, now move this beam kind of in my way because I want to relay there. We're going to cross over like this and hit the mainland. And while we're doing that, I need to be boosting up. Build a couple rounds of reactors here. Really want to make sure that we have enough energy to support the attack that we're about to do. Looking pretty good. Let's build more. Okay, now we're going to start getting some more weapons up. Let's have a couple beams. Sniper, we definitely want a few more mortars. And yeah, it looks like that's going to be plenty with our current energy, so I'm going to want you over here. Okay, some more energy coming our way. Cannons, lots of cannons. I also want to just take this down, disarm it. Yeah, don't do that. You come over here. Throw a couple more up here. And we're going to boost now our firing range. I think we probably have enough at this point. So I'm going to begin our attack. We just want to spread out. And we're not going to have all of our weapons survive. But we want to have as many of them as we can. Oh. There we go. So where is our... Where'd it go? There it is. I was looking for my sprayer. So I want to arm you and clear out this area so we can put in a relay. Is basically my point. And then, let's see, I'm definitely going to want more of everything. Throw up a couple more mortars. Get another sniper ready. Throw down some more cannons. Just get things ready to go. And frankly, I should also be throwing in some more reactors to keep our energy coming. Okay, now we need to concentrate on this. There we go. People are starting to have bad results, but we're also building the relay. Okay, let's move you for a bit. There we go. Now we're getting more resources in. You come back and land. You drop down there alongside. You come in. Maybe another one. And then we'll see. Well, we can't quite make those connections yet, but we'll work on them. Firing rate would be really nice at this point, but we can't quite afford it. Let's put a relay here. We're just going to gradually establish ourselves. So you come up, collector right behind you to establish connections. And we just want to keep pushing out. Yep, that'll work at least temporarily. We'll have to readjust some of this placement. Let's get some more of you ready. We've got a couple snipers ready to go over when we can find a place for them. We need to get up onto this plateau. And you can see we're at a little bit under 50%. So let's see, let's pull you up. We're just gradually moving our way. Maybe throw another one there. Move you up. Bring another mortar across. And you can see we are creating now room for ourselves. This would be a very nice place to hold if we can. Establish it there. I'm not quite ready to use them, but let's get these snipers over here. And keep bringing our mortars along, keep bringing our cannons along. We want to flood this whole area with weapons. And have more ready. Let's have a beam over there. Another beam over here. Okay, so one of these is down, and now we are on the way. So putting a nullifier here really does not actually hit any of these. But I'm going to put one of the mortars up here. It's time to deploy some snipers, I think. Let's get you up here, because then you can start shooting at some of these ore ships and slow them down directly. Going to get a relay up here. And then I also want to build a shield to just help us push some things back. But at this point, we should just be able to gradually expand our operation. See them taking little bits out of that ore ship. And let's move over this way. Just gradually move more of our force up to the top. And put more of our firepower in effective positions. One of you there to hold that line, maybe. I want to push down here to all of this next. And also, let's put another sniper here, build another one. Shield is up. Help us push out this direction then. Okay, that one didn't work out so well. Should get there in a minute, though. There we go. You're in place. We're going to nullify this. And this is working out real well over here as well. Let's get a relay there. A nullifier here. And then bring some weapons. Keep bringing the firepower in. Maybe we bring up one of you over this way. This is a little bit stronger emitter. But it should not be a problem. Bring another sniper up to this top level. You can see, like, they eliminate the warship here. It's just got to rebuild, and then it can never go off collecting more. That one can. Okay. So we're starting to have some issues with energy. Just going to drop a couple more reactors. And there we go. So let's keep pushing this direction because I would like this to go down. What did we lose? Lost our relay out here. We've lost power to the shield. Okay. That's actually really no big deal. Move the shield over here for now anyway. And let's keep pushing out this way. Of course, we do still need to hit this one, but with only one of them, you know, when they're sitting at 73%, are you going to activate? Very good. Let's centralize you a little bit more. But they're not going to be able to build this very fast now, so we have time to operate. And really the key to this part is just, you know, getting some of these down, slowing down the process. And with our snipers, we just basically have control of the area. Here they come. Got warships coming in. And this would be a good place, I think, for you. And we actually, our snipers are not over far enough to shoot them, so that's a bit of an error, but we can easily correct that. Okay, you can come in here now that that is cleared. And let's move our shield along here. Snipers more in position, maybe about there. They're going to be hitting some of the runners as well, but still only at 76%. And victory is about to be ours as we clear that out. And of course, we could easily just pump up some more upgrades here. We could go for clearing out more of the map, but not really necessary at this point. We have controlled everything that we need to, so we'll just pump up the speed a bit. And wait to be notified of our victory. And we get a whole bunch of explosions. And there it is. All the enemy structures on the map blow up. And victory is ours. there were people on both sides of the divide in terms of liking Farbor or not liking Farbor that really said it ruined the rest of Creeper World for them. Because if you liked it, then a lot of those people said, look, the difficulty level was great on Farbor, but the rest of the levels really can't give me that type of challenge, and so it doesn't really interest me that much anymore beyond this mission. Then there were people on the other side who, of course, just said it was too much of a difficulty cliff. It's too hard. Weren't familiar with the fact that there's the second softer ending, of course. They rage quit long before that, and just not interested not just in this map, but not interested in the game or the series at all, even though the developers tried to alleviate that with not just the softer ending, but there were walkthroughs posted, YouTube videos linked to. There was a save file put on Steam letting people know, hey, you can just load this save file that's from after Farbor if you just want to bypass it. But that really didn't get very far with it. People wanted to finish the level on their own, or they weren't aware of that, or various other reactions. But the biggest element of the controversy has really been players that just do not like the hard time limit. They want to build up, they want to play methodically, play at their own pace, and not have that sort of time pressure put on them. And that objection is what I want to spend the most of the balance of the video on, because it's been referred to in some very stringent ways as lazy, lazy design, artificial difficulty, total BS, things of that nature. Let's take a look at the legacy of the earlier missions in Creeper World, going back to the first game, and then some in the second game, and earlier in Creeper World 3. The levels that came before Farbor did in the series. And to sort of examine, is that a legitimate criticism? Or is there perhaps a broader picture in terms of the backdrop that we should consider? Our first stop in Creeper World 1 is Corvus, 7th mission out of 20. There's been a gradual buildup of basic concepts, and we've unlocked a few of the buildings that are available to use. And now it says we need to rescue some survivors on this map. Act quickly and aggressively. So this is the first time that the idea of time pressure is introduced in the Creeper World saga. And of course, the various pods that we need to rescue, and particularly getting to these as quickly as we can, because they are the closest to where the Creeper Tide, if you will, is coming in. So fighting right away is not the idea. The idea is just to build up our energy and then be able to stretch out across the islands, not going into the lower area, and use our relays to reach the pods before they can be destroyed. And this is one that has tripped up some players if they were not particularly quick on picking up all of the implications of what we're told early on. And then, of course, we begin the relay process. Stretch out over here. And we'll cross this way. And then here. And eventually over here as well. Of course, we can wait on items like this, or this one's over here, to just get it done faster. But you can definitely make some mistakes and still arrive in plenty of time. You just don't want to waste too much time. And second pod has now been rescued. Since we have overbuilt a bit here, we are running low on energy, but it will not be a problem. we're starting to clean up, except for this area over here, of course. We can see the creeper gradually moving its way over, but clearly that's the only one that remains in danger. And even though we have done some inefficient things and could have done our build up a little bit better, we have 2 relays left to salvage this. And the way this island is constructed, it's constructed this way on purpose, I think. It will only very slowly creep further over here. So it's sort of a visual warning that, you know, you might want to get over there, might want to handle that situation before it gets out of hand. And then, of course, once everything is accomplished, we would simply build up, push back the creeper, and collect our totems. But none of that required to grab all of the survival pods. Our next stop is Tucana, 11th mission, so first mission of the second half of Creeper World 1, and the resistance has gradually increased. We've learned about spores, surface-to-air missiles, and now we're told that mortars are instrumental. We've got 4 craters around the city to collect creeper, but that won't last very long, and we need to really build up quickly. This is a pretty famous map in Creeper World 1 in terms of the difficulty. And it's basically defensive time pressure. You just can't spend too much time building up on this one, or you will get overrun. There is still somewhat of a margin for error, but frankly it's probably not much higher than Farbor. You can't dawdle much here. And the general idea on this map is just to have a mortar on this ridge and a mortar on this ridge over here, each of which can fire directly in. The idea is they can hit both craters at once, and so they'll generally alternate and keep things from getting too bad. And then, of course, once we get these up, we're going to gradually increase our energy, move out the collectors as much as we can. But it's important to get them up quickly, even if you can't quite fully supply them, just to stop the bleeding, if you will. Then the firing causes more creeper to drain off into the craters. And from here on out, you would simply gradually build up your energy, fill out this area when it becomes necessary. Then you start building blasters and just pushing the creeper back. A few maps further on, the 16th one is Ix, which allows us drone bombers. We've already seen reactors by this point. And notice our marching orders again. Once the creeper spills over the edge of the craters, floods down onto the plain in a nearly unstoppable force. And I think you can argue that the time tolerance here is even tighter than Tucana. At least at the very best, it's similar. And this is sort of, I mean, you could call it both defensive and offensive time pressure, I guess, because we need to hit these craters to stop the attack they're going to be sending our way. And we will boost our building speed just to help where we can. Drone tech, and naturally we will need 2 of these pronto. And they're starting to spill over. So we are none too fast here. They're finished, but now they also have to charge. And we'll build a couple blasters for defense. Meanwhile, off go our drones. And they will stop the flow from coming further. Quite effectively. Our blasters is up. We can defend our area. And since the flow in our direction will then be stopped, or almost completely stopped, then we can feel quite happy about ourselves. Gradually build up. Connect to the totems, get more upgrades, increase our blaster count. All of that will happen over time, and we will have to gradually recharge our drones, but they can handle the situation for us, and the danger is past if you act quickly enough. The 18th mission is Volan, and really doesn't fit in with the other ones we've showed, but I'm putting it in for balanced perspective, because this is more of a traditional Creeper World map that doesn't have the starting time pressure at a high level. Of course, to a certain extent, every Creeper World map has time pressure. If you sit there and do nothing for long enough, then you'll be defeated. But I'm talking more of the more urgent nature of some of the other maps we've been looking at. And this is just one where you can methodically build up and turtle to a certain extent if you want, and that's totally fine. Now, of course, we do have the creeper down below us to the south here. That'll overflow on here if you wait too long. This will overflow here. This is spreading out this way. You know, it's going to prevent us from getting all of our upgrades right away. We're going to get this one as quickly as we can. But obviously, the faster you expand, the better you are. But you're not under a huge amount of pressure to do it super fast. And so that's more of the typical approach. And on a map like this, I'm going to block this off with a blaster. And we're just going to shore up our key points, but then continue expanding our energy network for basically as long as the creeper allows us to. Eventually build a blaster or a mortar over here. We'll gradually expand over this way to grab more territory. And then as we build up, we can push in further and further once we have the firepower. Moving on to the sequel, Creeper World 2 Redemption, there is at least as early as Mission 8, the Sliver, situations where you can get into trouble if you do not start quickly enough, but they're not really of the type that would make you lose the map. That starts with Mission 11, the Cooker. And we're introduced to the Repulsor. We have attacks that are going to come at us from above and the sides with decayable terrain. And we either get going quick enough or we get in a lot of trouble. There is really no third direction here. And the top is definitely the more dangerous area. But they are all vital. You can see they're getting close to eating through. But our repulsors are up in time. And we have stopped the flow. And then, of course, you can just build up with whatever weaponry you may choose and fight the enemy in any direction, really, that you want. But if you don't get the repulsors up fast enough, Creeper just swamps in, and you are dead. After just one fairly straightforward mission, Map 13 is Horror. And this one is fairly comparable to Tucana from Creeper World 1. It's a map where things are really starting to get more serious for you. If you've been coasting your way along, it's more than a speed bump. It's a significant setback for many players. And the basic gimmick here is we have these pods that we need to rescue. And there's 4 of them, 3 of which will be destroyed by the creeper if we do not get to them fast enough. This one's usually pretty safe. It's just sort of an obstacle on the way. But the others, not so fortunate. And so you have to figure out which ones the creeper are going to hit first. Prioritize where you go, and of course we're grabbing our energy here. And then expanding our reactor set as quickly as we can. And then we'll boost our energy since we have the chance. Of course, we could go for something like firing rate, but I'll do energy here. Throw up a beacon. This will be a problem down here if we don't have a blaster. And then we'll want more here. Come in here and grab that. Maybe throw a few more reactors on top. All of you come up here and fight. Then we start, of course, building some more weapons down this way. Place that one with a beacon so that we can eventually move over here further. This will all crash through eventually. And then, of course, we'll just want to keep expanding our range as we're able. And so you sometimes have to multitask like this, or at least it's useful to. You're expanding your fighting force at the same time you're expanding your economy. And you definitely cannot be methodical or slow or turtle it if you expect to find success. As you can see over here, it's eating through there. You know, one tile plus a bit, and it's going to be in there. And if we don't get in there like now, then we're going to be in some trouble. And we can expand some more reactors here. Maybe bring one of you down here. Now, fortunately, these are fairly slow decaying, as you can see, so they do give you some time. It's not a horribly tight thing, but you do not have the luxury of not concerning yourself with that either. Then, of course, one of the other new additions of Creeper World 2, the Nullifier. We'll be making use of that soon as we get enough protection in here. And then we can seize this. We nullify this. After that, we make our way down here. And the fight continues, and we have to be able to relieve this pressure, of course, before it all floods up into this area. And that's a reasonably generous time frame. Next up is Phoenix, which sort of has some pressure that goes away quickly, in the form of the new Phantoms. It's sort of the Creeper World 2 answer to the Spore threat from the first game. And we can't actually do anything about them other than clean up their mess as they crash into our infrastructure at the very beginning here. But we have to get this Phantom Coil as quickly as we can. And if you get that in a reasonable amount of time, you will still have a decent amount of reactors up. And then you can build some Phantom Coils, stop the Phantom attacks, and you can just progress at your own pace after that. There are capsules on this map, but they're up here, and they're not going to be hit. They're going to be totally fine, and you can basically capture them at your leisure. Over the next handful of missions, there are definitely a couple at least, purpose, trickery, etc., that you could put in that hybrid category. But to not get too bogged down in the details, we're moving ahead to Colony Prime, second to last one, and very similar to Horror, it's just harder. So we have, once again, items that we need to rescue. In this case, they're bunkers, not capsules. But there's a lot of creeper down here compared to what we're used to dealing with up to this point. There's also powerful drones that we must deal with. And we pretty much have to jump out to a quick start once again, build up. I think the first set of bunkers goes down around 4 minutes in or so. And if you don't get there in time, well, you know the drill. You fail, and you have to try again. Then if you go ahead to the final mission, it's back on defensive time pressure type of approach, but there is an absolutely huge amount. They have special tools, conversion bomb, dark beam, etc. for you to deal with it. But there's an absolutely huge amount in the early part of that mission of creeper that you have to deal with. And so once again, it is really not something that you can just sit back and relax and take at whatever pace you might want to do. Onward then to Creeper World 3 and Ruine, which is about halfway through the official story maps. And the goal of Ruine is to have us use the Guppy to reach all of these remote locations. But it also has an alpha strike of spores that's going to hit about 3 minutes in. And if you don't build up quickly enough, it will simply destroy you, because I think there's a little over 20 spores that you'll get hit with. And this is a fairly loose time constraint. It's not one that is going to cause huge problems as long as you are moving out and being cautious and being aware that the spores that are there. It's easy to miss them, of course. But if you build up your beam defenses in anything resembling an efficient manner, then you'll be totally fine. We can even stretch out areas like this, and we can knock out this spore launcher, for example, before it activates. But we are well advised to have several beams in place before they decide to hit. If we have not managed that, well, we will definitely pay a price for it. And I'm just going to leave all of the spore launchers intact in this particular case, just to see what happens. Of course, we can see we're short on energy. But the real trouble here is if we were to try to just say, look, I'm just going to hop around to these various islands and attack and not set up my defenses in time. That's pretty much the only way you're going to get in trouble. If you just set up and once everything's in place, maybe you start building some extra energy to really support everything you're trying to do, then you are going to be totally fine. Put that in 2-minute mark. You can see they all start activating. The spore towers are fully built, and we get our countdown. And in they come. A few of these get through, smash onto your islands. All of a sudden you have nowhere for your command nodes to go, and you could really be feeling some pain then. Also in the ecosystem is Choix, which I think is definitely the mid-game level in Creeper World 3 that trips up the most new players. We've got the shield schematic revealed to us for the first time, and we have 3 entrances of destructible walls. We could terp them, but the idea here is that you want to use shields partly for that, and partly for dealing with these slip emitters that are just tossing Creeper out at various locations. They won't toss it inside the walls, however. They are scripted to not allow that to happen. And so you need to grab the siphons and build up pretty quickly here. Shield emitter along with everything else. And this gradually stretch out. And sort of relay along to these areas. This is an interesting little notch here, allowing you to do that. You can see the walls there being damaged already. And then if we put one shield at each of these, we can begin that process. Cannon in all places. Start a forge. And then generally, you just want to build up. You can see that we still have lots of energy in the siphon, and a good way to use that is just spam some reactors. Looks like maybe we can go a little higher than that. And we still have one siphon left. Then generally, what you'll want to do is just throw out some mortars. I'll probably rearrange. There it goes. That'll work. Just put these out along the walls so that the incoming pressure is not too severe. And then from there, you just build up an attack force. But if you're not quick enough getting the shields in, then you'll start getting pushed in here. You'll get overrun. Your shields will fail due to lack of energy if you're not getting enough reactors up. There are a number of ways in which this can go south for you pretty quickly. What a lot of players will do on this level is just extend a string of shields with relays along to our target emitter here and the shield key, and that will allow you to defend against the unpredictable sort of geyser eruptions of the creeper on the map. The slip emitters on Choix are far from the only gimmicky, exotic, unique, whatever you might want to call it, mechanic in Creeper World 3. There's quite a bit that goes on. This is Mistet, which is just the magnetar level. This orbits around the edge. It's going to suck creeper towards it, and you're going to have varying vectors of attack that you need to defend against based on that, not just exactly the direction that the emitters are in. There's not a huge amount of creeper for the size of this map. It's not one where you have to start in a hugely fast or efficient manner, but it's just sort of a wrinkle that's thrown at you. There's also maps like Creek, where it's got some isolated islands in the middle that are actually quite a challenge to get to because there's an inhibitor there, and you have to destroy that inhibitor in order to win. There's the pyramids that you can utilize on Miso for shields and anti-creeper, and so on. So it seems that it clearly was a design goal in Creeper World 3 to throw a variety of situations at the player. Again, we're still talking about a situation where it's mostly a methodical build-up. You can turtle if you want, but there are different scenarios that it is throwing out there periodically. And as we expand out here, you can see this is coming through the walls. So at a certain point, you want to start throwing up some defenses. Grabbing ore mines quicker rather than later is a good idea. And there are different ways of going about this, but one possible way of dealing with it, again, the creeper level increasing, and then as it starts to be pulled in this way, okay, we're now going to start have issues over here. You can build some terps if you want, plug the holes in the wall to make things a little bit easier on yourself, or you can go a little bit more aggressively and just spam a bunch more weapons, try to strike out and clear out the resistance. Any of those will happen to work for you. Vapen is a much discussed precursor map to Farbor. To reach the system that Farbor's in, we need to knock out this inhibitor. Of course, there are shield keys on other planets you need to get as well. But this is really a traditional tower defense type of idea. We have a flimsy wall here that will not last long, stopping the creeper rushing downhill, and there's quite a bit of it. It's going to become quickly, and we need to build up with not a lot of tolerance for errors, or we will be overrun. So we'll just stretch out a bit here at the start. Grab ourselves a siphon. And continue on. And we want to get as far out as we reasonably can. Close to the wall, but perhaps not all the way there. Get a decent network rolling. Toss up a couple ore mines. We've got our third command node there. Let's utilize that siphon energy. Put up some reactors. we'll want a forge as quickly as possible. And then we really can't wait any longer. We need some weapons. It's probably a good idea for us to grab a couple sprayers here when we can, but we don't have... Well, we've got a little bit more energy in that siphon. I guess we'll do that now. Bring you out here, have you try to help. Of course, we can see that, okay, we lost a collector over here. Bring out these cannons and fight off the incoming. And now that you're in place, we'll move you out. It's a good idea at a certain point to just have a little bit of mortar firepower. And maybe we'll start putting up a couple more cannons. Have a firm enough foundation. Always a good idea, I think, even if it puts you just a tad short on energy, not a lot, but a tad, to just add more reactors. And then you just try to battle through it. We'll gradually be able to expand, use the forge to boost our energy efficiency. Shove more weapons toward the front. We can gradually move our weapons forward, place down more collectors, more reactors, and push into the enemy area. And that brings us back full circle to Farbor itself. I definitely do think there are valid criticisms to be made of the mission. As I mentioned before, the fake or soft ending, however you want to think of that, it does give the impression of being deceptive because the player doesn't know they can keep going until after it comes, and again, most people have rage quit before that point. From what I've seen, the most common negative assessment given is one that I'm a little bit more ambivalent on. The idea that it's a synergistic issue. Having a hard map is fine, having a map that has a time limit is fine, but having the hardest map in the game be the only one with a time limit is just too jarring, and you weren't prepared for that as a player. I can see that, but I think it's a more subjective than objective approach, and that's not inherently wrong. But I think after you've tried Farbor once or twice, you know what it's doing. It's not a surprise at that point. Just adjust your mindset and go with what it's telling you. The idea of it being lazy design, I think, is just really a cop-out. It's a bad argument. I think variety in strategy games is good. If a game is not requiring you to mix up your strategy and you can use the same approach always, then I wouldn't even call that a strategy game. I would call that more sandboxy. That doesn't mean it has to be a time limit, but I think Creeper World 3 did some good things in the variety of situations that it put you in, and Virgil Wall has talked before about one of his major concerns being mission variety. How do we continue to make the game interesting without every mission seeming the same? And so I would say if every map was, slow, methodical, turtle, you're never required to change anything up at all, that would be lazy design from my perspective. And that unfortunately there's been a number of people who have said things that frankly just aren't so. This quote comes from Steam User Warfare, and by the way, I'm not cherry picking here. The most trollish issues I've just left them aside and not even bothering with. Been with the game series since the beginning. I won't be buying the next game because of this map. I hate timers in games with a passion. This one map has ruined the series for me for good. Well, hold on a minute. Going back to some of the other missions that we've seen earlier in this video, Corvus in Creeper World 1, Horror and Colony Prime in Creeper World 2, there are just as much time limits in those as there are in Farbor. And in both cases, there's steps you can take to mitigate that or give yourself more time. So it just doesn't make sense to play through those games and then come to Farbor and say, this is completely new, this is not what Creeper World's about. Then there's this from KRT Montaigne. This is tedious. Enjoyable methodical strategy game where I can take my time over each mission. Then you get to Farbor and it becomes a game of save, retry, reload. Again, no. Rewind to Vapen. That is not a take your time kind of mission at the beginning. You build up your defenses or you are dead. It is somewhat of a different skill to attack within a certain time than it is to defend against something at a certain time, but I think that's the point. Again, variety is good. And from a time pressure standpoint, there's no difference there of significance. You've still got to move quickly, whether it's guarding what you have or going out to hit some vital target. Then there have been those who have just objected to the difficulty spike in general. Then at the same time, you have other players who really wanted that difficulty spike and think it's too easy without it. You also can't just dryly look at a mission and say, this is how hard it is. For example, in the most recent game, Creeper World 4, what I've called the Wambulance Trio, the final set of missions at the end of the campaign, most people think Wallace, the 19th mission, is the hardest. But some have said it's Sequence. Some have said it's the final mission, Founders. Others have pointed to missions earlier in the campaign and said, I think these are harder than any of them. And it depends on the player's perspective, what they go into it with. There's not just one answer for difficulty that you can come down on. Farbor is definitely a spike up from the previous maps, and you could argue it's the hardest map from the story in the Creeper World saga, though I think there are some that are close. But if you compare it to, say, Vapen, I don't think it's something that's just tons and tons harder. It's a significant jump, but it's not just a complete absolute cliff. So my take on Farbor is generally that it's unjustly criticized. It's flawed, it's not perfect, but it's also not deserving the level of ire, hate, and criticism that it's gotten over the years. I guarantee if you just took Farbor completely out of the game, if it didn't exist as a story campaign, you would have not probably the same level of criticism, but you would have a number of people saying, why is there no challenge in this game? And that has happened with a number of the Creeper World games. To some extent, it's probably an inevitable process, but there's this splintering of the player base that has happened. People coming in at different iterations with multiple sequels in Creeper World, and they want different things out of it. And for every person that's fine with having an easy story campaign, and look, if you want hard maps, you go to the community maps, there are others who say, I'm not interested in community content, I want the developer content. I want the campaign itself to present me a challenge, or the game feels empty to me. And beyond a certain point, there's really no way to accommodate all of those within one game. You simply have to choose, and even though he acknowledges it as a mistake now, I'm glad that Virgil Wall went for this and went for a more challenging mission, because I think it's unique, and positively so. Thanks for watching, everyone who's stuck around to hear my thoughts on Farbor. If you have any other ideas of videos on Creeper World or other subjects you'd like to see me tackle, please let me know in the comments below.